Are you artistic? Just look at this painting. Do you read the story there? Before looking at the drama when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, let's do a little revision. Now therefore please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For I shall go up to my father, and if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father. Judah's self-sacrificing attitude is certainly deserving praise. Voluntary submission to servitude on behalf of a brother who enjoyed a higher degree of parental affection in order to save his aged father fresh sorrow and anguish cannot be overestimated. Judah's self-forgetful magnanimity has never been surpassed and but seldom equaled. Judah emerges here as a truly converted man, a worthy ancestor of the promised seed, and worthy to give his name to the chosen people of God. This is typology. He is a type of Christ, Judah, the Lion of Judah. Can you appreciate Joseph's emotional condition after Judah concluded his appeal to stay behind in the place of Benjamin? Joseph could no longer doubt that a complete change had come over the brothers, and over Judah in particular, since the day when he had so eloquently urged the sale of Joseph into slavery. And now he looks at the different Judah. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stood with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Loretta, what do these column bases from the time of Joseph tell you? Judah's appeal did not fail to impress Joseph, she said to me. His speech had shown the most tender affection for their aged father, the most devoted brotherly love and faithfulness to the only remaining son of Rachel. Dad, I think his speech had given ample evidence of the change of heart that had taken place in all of them, not only in of Judah. When Joseph finally realized it, he could no longer contain himself. This is what this beautiful Egyptian art was telling me when I visited Avaris, where it all happened. He couldn't control the fountain of painful and joyful tears of 22 years and asked his palace staff to excuse themselves. He wanted to be private when he would reveal himself to his brothers. Some events needs privacy. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. I think when he burst out in tears, his brothers were flabbergasted. What's happening here? Tears are washing away the pain and rejection he carried for all these years. Then Joseph said to his brothers, and now he's speaking Hebrew, "I'm Joseph. Does my father still live?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. The emotional and psychological effect of this announcement is easier to imagine than to describe. I love these stories. Until this moment, Joseph had been known to his brothers as Zaphnath Paneah, a ruler who spoke to them through an interpreter. Now this august lord of Egypt suddenly spoke to them in their own language. Hey, you should have seen their faces. The voice and the likeness of their long-lost brother Joseph rushed upon the minds at the sound of the familiar name and filled them with amazement, but also apprehension. Can you see the new expressions that suddenly appear on their faces? You know, when I visit these sites, I relive the story. Here at our fathers, where it all happened, I thought, perhaps Joseph was impelled to ask, does my father still live? So abruptly, so quickly after seeing the shock in their faces. So he said, it's my father, I'm Joseph. Now he no longer refers to Jacob as the old man of whom you speak, but as his own dear beloved and revered and precious father. Can you hear the sound when he mentions the name, my father? This is great. They were dismayed in his presence. In other words, they trembled, they were troubled, alarmed and agitated. This new turn in events was too much. The men were speechless. They were terrified not only because of Joseph's greatness, but by the recollection of their former crime against him. Chaps, we're in trouble. They said to one another. Loretta says, at this stage they did not yet fear human punishment because nobody knew about what happened, so nobody could persecute them. Dad, I think they thought Joseph was going to punish them immediately for what they did to him here at the well of Dothan where I'm sitting right now. And you know, when I visited this well, the story came back to me. Can you see him being sold? Rejected. Rejection is so painful. And Joseph said to his brothers, he's a great man. Please come near to me. He's weeping. He's inviting them to come near to him. So they came near. I think they were trembling. Then he said, he repeats it, I'm Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Joseph is a type of another Joseph, Jesus Christ, who was also sold by his brothers. But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. And then this wonderful thought, for God sent me before you to preserve life. You know, maybe you were rejected, cast away. And God is trying to use this situation to save lives. Don't see the trauma in a negative fashion. Instinctively, they shrank from Joseph's presence at the alarming truth that the mighty Lord of Egypt was their brother. They couldn't take it. They moved back. He assured them in the kindest of words that he had no intention of taking revenge on him. Don't worry, brothers. It's fine. God is in this whole drama. He could not avoid allusion referring to their former wickedness, but this was done in a spirit of charity and forgiveness. Isn't this beautiful? We can mention harm that was done to us in a spirit of forgiveness, not retaliation. Do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. These words still echo through the ages. Can you hear them? He might have justly rebuked his brothers, but instead manifested sympathy and consideration toward them. What a beautiful type of Christ and the way he handles our trespasses. Joseph could have retaliated, but he forgave. We can retaliate, but forgiving is much better. He could see God's leading in his life from a slave to a ruler in Egypt. And what about you and me? You know, if you look back at your past, you'll be able to detect how God was leading you up to this very moment. For these 2 years, the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. Now he's talking business. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. He spoke prophetically that God had brought him to Egypt in order to preserve through him the family destined to become God's chosen people. It was made possible because he saved them from starvation. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. Look at this. If we could see God in the trauma that comes to us in life, it'll make a big difference. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Joseph spoke to them concerning his authority. God honored him in his high position. Fortunately, they sold him. They chucked him out. And now, the tears of pain changes into tears of joy. He used 3 expressions to describe his office, of which the first one was father to Pharaoh. He was a trusted counselor of the king and a sustainer of the dynasty. That's the Hyksos dynasty. Lord of all his house. The second term had already been used by the king himself at the time of Joseph's appointment. It indicates that Joseph stood at the head of the royal household. This is something. Ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. The third designation, also bestowed upon Joseph by Pharaoh, was certainly not new to Joseph's brothers, who had heard of and experienced his authority. They already knew that his power was not limited to the distribution of food, to the dealings with foreigners, but that he was actually viceroy of Egypt, one who rules a country as the representative of who is empowered to act in the sovereign's name. Listen to this. Hurry, my brothers, hurry, and go up to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. Hurry, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me. Beautiful echoes of salvation, and you shall be near to me. You and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine. This is the gospel. This is what Jesus is doing to us, inviting us to him. No poverty when we come to him. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Brothers, you're not dreaming. This is reality. Although Joseph had now spoken for a while, his brothers were still flabbergasted. To convince them of the reality of the whole affair, Joseph was obliged to illustrate that they could see for themselves that what he said was true. Only when Joseph embraced his brothers and kissed them was the spell broken. Now that he gained control over their emotions and were able to talk with him, he revealed himself in the role of a loving brother and not of an offended judge. His kisses and tears had given them assurance of complete forgiveness. Has somebody forgiven you? It is so sweet. A truth that words could not have expressed so well. Only then did they dare to speak, after the kisses and the embrace. This is how we should treat our enemies. So you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here. Like Joseph, we all want our parents to be proud of us. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck. He was the last one to get an embrace. And wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. Do you get the picture? It's so beautiful. Instead of being jailed or executed, they all receive embraces and kisses. What a beautiful definition of God's plan to save sinners. You know what you do? Convey a message. The other day I got a gift from two precious friends of mine. It was a great gift. And I said to them, you know what? What you're doing, I can see God's love. You are exhibiting God's love. When we appreciate God's forgiveness, we will also do what the brothers of Joseph did. We will have the boldness to speak to our dear heavenly Joseph. Are you intimidated by God's greatness? On Calvary, he embraced you, my friend. You can speak to him freely. Now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. Joseph had the authority to invite his family, but he felt it was proper to seek and receive Pharaoh's personal approval. Follow the protocol. I love the story of Joseph. I want to be like him. No one could say that Joseph had in any way taken personal advantage of the power and authority entrusted to him. Joseph's administrative ability, demonstrated now for 9 years, had pleased the king and the other statesmen of Egypt. His bona fide spoke loud. They were delighted to have Joseph's relatives make their home in Egypt. To Pharaoh, it was an opportunity to show his gratitude. What a beautiful relationship between Pharaoh and Joseph. What can we learn from the life of Joseph? It is so important to read the biographies of people from the Bible. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart. Go to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and your households and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. You are paupers, but you will live as millionaires here. Now you are commanded, do this. Take carts out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives. Bring your father and come. Before the arrival of the Hyksos, horses and wagons were unknown. Just another confirmation, by the way, of the authenticity of the Bible. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. Isn't this kind of Pharaoh? He was going to take them to the best furniture shop and pay the bill. Joseph had asked his brothers to come with all their possessions. You know, you like some of your possessions. You just can't leave them behind. Pharaoh, in contrast, invited them to leave all their household furniture behind and accept the bounties of Egypt, in token of his gratitude for what Joseph had done for the country of his adoption. Then the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them carts, according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. For the first time, these brothers had the joy of riding on brand new wagons, royal ones, Mercedes-Benzes and Ferraris, Jaguars. What else did Joseph do to improve his status? He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. Their old, tattered, worn-out garments were replaced by the brand new special royal ones. Is this what our Heavenly Father is going to do when we are going to be transferred to the heavenly Goshen? You know, big surprises are awaiting us. Are you aware of another Joseph who replaces old garments of sin for special new ones, the perfect righteousness of Jesus? And he sent to his father these things: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt. They carried a load that they've never carried before. And 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. Typology. Here you read the gospel. What kind of transport and food and clothing does our heavenly Joseph provide for us to come to him? Everything. Do these donkeys know about the one that Joseph sent to fetch his father? So he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and he said to them, "See that you do not become troubled along the way." They had so many things to talk about on their way back. Reuben might reproach them again, and they could have told him to shut his big mouth. I love the story. Homo via tors is the great French philosophy. We're on our way to a destiny. And this man and his son are heading to a destiny, and we are heading to our destiny. And on your destiny, please do not quarrel with your loved ones. To your destiny, appreciate them. We're here just for a few moments, and then we're gone. So we go through life but once. Let us be kind to one another. Then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father. What did Jacob see? Different faces with different expressions and wealth. Those donkeys were so happy when they eventually offloaded their loads. How did they feel when they approached Beersheba? It was close to Hebron, just a few k's. And they told him, saying, "Joseph is still alive, Dad." But Dad, you know what? And he's governor over all the land of Egypt. 22 years before, when his sons told him about Joseph's supposed death, Joseph believed his lies. Do you think he's going to believe them now? Now that they are coming to tell him the truth, Joseph would not believe it at all. "No, I don't believe it." And they told him, saying, "Joseph is still alive, and he is governor of over all the land of Egypt." And Jacob's heart stood still because he did not believe them. Suppose they gave him salvolately or some kind of relaxing medicine. What kind of confession was expected from them? First of all, they told Joseph is dead, and now they say he's alive. So the poor old man was confused for a few minutes. And Jacob's heart stood still because he did not believe them. Have your spirits been so crushed that your heart stood still? Sometimes we've had so many tragedies that it's difficult to be optimistic. You don't trust people anymore. And by the way, how would he ever get to that faraway land? You tell me he wants me to go there, but how do you think I'll be able to get there? What if somebody would tell you that your chronic pain, like that of Jacob's, would eventually be replaced with joy untold? And my dear friend, we all have pain. We all have a story of pain and rejection. And there's only one good news. That's the good news of the gospel. Pain will soon be gone away. Go away. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts, the wagons, the Ferraris, Mercedes-Benzes, which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob, their father, revived. Typical man, eh? What can regenerate the crushed spirit of the Christian? When he sees the gospel vehicle that can transfer him to the place where there is eternal joy, with no pain, with no death, with no rejection. The gospel is the wagon, my friend, that can take us from here to there. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go up and see him before I die. The change of name, the name here is significant. He's called Israel. In spirit, Jacob rose once more to the stature of a prince of God. The realization that his long-lost son was still alive, and the anticipation of an imminent reunion with him, invigorated the aged patriarch. Relive the second coming again. And what happened to Jacob will happen to you. We've got a wonderful, blessed hope. The second coming of Jesus. His vitality revived, as is apparent from the immediate decision to go down to Egypt. The sight of Joseph would be rich compensation for all the long years of sorrow and anguish, and would crown his life with joy. My dear friend, I've got extremely good news for you. The day when Jesus comes, we will experience new vitality. Our spirits will be revived, and we will receive the gift of immortality. Father in heaven, sometimes grief, disappointments crush our spirits. But thank you for the good news that the heavenly Joseph invites us to the heavenly Goshen, to an embrace where all our tears and questions will disappear. Help us to look and live in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for watching this presentation. To subscribe to our channel, click here, then click the bell to get notifications. For the next presentation, click here. See you next time.